And welcome to the Lock and Load Show. I hope we're live here. And I wanted to start out by playing this video of this gendarme, European Union gendarme in Paris. They deployed armored vehicles, apparently, and causing a little bit of a stir. You can see the EU flag right there by the door on the right, the blue field with the circles on the blue field there. This is Hermes gendarme. We're guessing that these just have smoke and tear gas launchers. And here they are joining the fray in the Paris riots. And I just thought there's a controversy about using armor against unarmed civilians, basically. So shoot this video a couple times by you so you can get a good look at it. And then, so today was an interesting day. I mean, first, Theresa May went in front of Parliament and delayed the vote on the Brexit plan being voted down, basically. And she had an excuse. Well, I'm going to go and get some clarification on the border in between Northern Ireland and Ireland, because we don't want it to become militarized. That would end the peace agreement between Britain and the IRA and mess up the peace there. But she's basically going to get a note from the EU. And there's no way. I mean, I listened to everybody speak in the Parliament today, and there's no way they're going to ever approve the Brexit deal. And so she's apparently stalling until they've already committed to leave the EU because they had a vote, the referendum in 2016 to leave the EU. But they have not. And the Parliament voted to leave the EU on the 29th of March, 2019. But there's no plan and agreement in place. So if she's just going to wait until the 28th and say, well, this is the plan, take it or leave it, or there will be a no plan, no deal exit, which everybody has predicted will be a complete disaster. But the way things look, there might not even be an EU by March 29th. So, but I thought it was, when I saw that they deployed armored vehicles against unarmed civilians, I thought that was, and they had an EU flag on it, but they're called gendarme, which I think Squib looked up on Google, and see it says gendarme on the side there. It said that means like, it's another word for police. I guess they have more than one way of saying police. See the flag there. Painted there.
You know what I don't see on it?
What?
Okay, so it's got French writing on it, but it doesn't have a French flag at all. It's just the EU flag.
Yeah,
so do you think it's got an EU flag just because France is in the EU and they're not flying their own flag? So maybe it's French police, it's a French vehicle, it's all French, but they're tight with the EU now, right?
Well, having an EU army was what Macron, French President Macron, floated. That was one of him and Macron and Angela Merkel agreed on having it would be a good idea to have a European army, but obviously somebody would have to pay for it, and and that's the problem they're having there. They can't even. Everybody in France wants free stuff, and everybody in England wants free stuff, but in France they want all their social programs, all their benefits, and that they don't want taxes to go up. And France is the most highly taxed country on the planet. Literally, no developed country has a higher tax rate than France. So when they added, that's what sparked the riot. It's like somebody threw a match and some black powder, and all it took was a little gasoline tax hike, and everything just blew up.
Well, it's more than a little tax hike. It's a pretty big tax hike on gas. And my understanding is the reasoning they did that wasn't because they needed the money to pay for these social programs. It was to force people to use less gasoline because they are all about the whole, global warming bullshit.
Yes, that was the theory behind it. The fact is they needed it was only a 30 cents per gallon gas increase.
I heard it was several dollars per gallon.
No, it's the total tax. They raised it 30 cents, but the total tax was like $3.50 a gallon. And in just taxes, not counting another $4 for the gas.
Putting a tax on gas to prevent global warming is like putting a tax on ammunition to prevent crime. Not a good idea to do either.
Yeah, it's not a good idea. But so I listened to Macron's speech, and I think Squibb did too. And Oklahoma was out hunting today, oops, unsuccessfully. But you'll get lucky. Successful. You'll get lucky. How many more days in your hunting season there?
January 15th is the end of 2018-2019 deer season.
Okay. Well, all right, I'm going to talk briefly about Macron's speech. He no understand. He came on the air. He was contrite. I didn't see the first minute or two, but I saw the last half of it. And he said in a very Darth Vader Star Wars way that I feel your anger. Well, okay. It's like it makes you strong. But it's so Darth Vader. When he said that, I was like, wow, that's like Darth Vader. Feel your anger. But and he asked for more time to try and work everything out. He said he could understand people protesting a gasoline tax hike. He could understand that. But he could not. Go ahead.
He needs more time to work things out.
Yeah.
So what is he doing? Breaking up with France or what?
Well, he's the president.
That sounds like a breakup excuse.
He needs more time to fix whatever's broken and whatever's not working, like the economy, the government, and the EU, because it's clearly not working. And
right.
And so, but what he said after that was, after he said, I can understand people protesting a gasoline tax hike, and I feel your anger. But then he said, I can't understand violence against the police. I cannot understand. What he said was, I cannot understand violence against the police. So let me try and explain it to President Macron if he can't understand violence against the police. I can understand I can understand someone who is against violence against the police. I can understand someone who is for violence against the police. But what I can't understand is someone who can't understand violence against the police. I mean, anybody who watched the protest, it was very clear what they were saying. And somebody left a really when I was live streaming the protest from a social media platform on my channel, somebody in the external text said, left a comment that said, why don't you people need to protest in English? Because he couldn't understand what they're saying. Well, I could understand a word or two, but you didn't really need to understand the language to understand what they were saying. And if you can't understand, I mean, the police are the right-hand enforcement arm of the state. Any laws that they pass are going to be enforced by the police. So how can you not look at that riot and not understand it? I mean, it speaks for itself. It was like one time Squibb said animals don't talk. And I related a case that I had seen in National Geographic of a lion who came on an alpha, like 550-pound alpha male comes on the scene of like one lioness in his pride fighting off like 30 hyenas who were trying to get a carcass away from her. And they give up trying to get the carcass and they start attacking the lioness. And he just strolls up, sees the food, and he roars once. And within a 5-mile radius, everybody man or beast in a 5-mile radius understood exactly what that lion was saying, and they didn't need to speak. They didn't need to go to school to learn how to speak Mayan. Just one roar from like that alpha, and everybody knew he was saying, "Get the fuck out!" And unless you've got steak sauce for this gazelle, I get the fuck out. and the hyenas, like the whole pack, 30, 40 hyenas, they didn't stop to look. They just instantly, they didn't look for the lion. As soon as they heard it, they ran. So if you can, how can you, Macron is like he was an investment banker before he was elected president. And people thought, since he understood investment banking, he understood the economy, and he could keep France going and keep all the social programs fully funded and somehow fix everything. But it turns out he was a little more socialist, and being a banker, it turns out that doesn't mean you know anything about how the economy works, because apparently he doesn't. It's just amazing that how can you watch those riots and not understand violence against the police? I mean, like I said, I can understand being against violence against the police. I can understand being for violence against the police. But what I can't understand is a president of a country who can't understand violence against the police. It was just so clear to me that he no understand. And it's once they threw that little extra gasoline tax and it went up to $3.50 or $3.75 or $4 in just taxes on gas, plus the $4 or $5 a gallon on top of it, and people couldn't afford food and gasoline, and they needed gasoline to drive to work, and they need food to eat, and they just couldn't afford it, and they just flipping had it. And so now they're going to protest everything, because it's like, they wrote on the they tagged the Eiffel Tower with spray paint, not the Eiffel Tower, the Arc de Triomphe, and it says "Hang the King," and obviously they're referring to Macron. So he truly doesn't understand his own people, but maybe he really is an elitist. I mean, he doesn't have the problems that people on the street have, which is after all the taxes to keep all the social programs going, the people want all their stuff for free, but they certainly don't want any more flipping taxes. And he talked about taxing the rich, and how if he just raises the taxes on the people who make lots of money, then they'll just leave. And they won't stay there anymore, and all the companies will leave too. And then there won't be any jobs or anything. But the people need to blame somebody, and right now it's him. He's it. And I don't see that any more time. He just doesn't understand. I mean, if he wants to save France, he needs to go ask Trump how to run an economy. I mean, because the whole theory about banking is just they just keep printing more money and out of thin air, and then that's how they pay for everything. But the taxes are so high, and they've printed so much money, and all the banks are insolvent, and the wheels are coming off the armored vehicle, I guess. And so they sent in armored vehicles, and it's just a total flipping mess.
I wonder what sort of gas mileage those things get, with the gas taxes being so high and all.
I don't know. Did we ever figure out exactly what model these things are?
I couldn't find out anything other than that it was called the Hermes. I don't know. I mean,
how much you want to bet they bought them from Germany? How much you want to bet they bought them from Germany?
They are. They're German. I did see that they are German vehicles. They're German.
So German armor vehicles in Paris.
Yeah, or you might want to look for maybe SWAT vehicle or armored police vehicle or something, because that's not a military vehicle. That is definitely something for a civil unit like the police, a SWAT team, something like that. Maybe a National Guard thing. But Yeah, it's got arms. So what? I mean, our cops have armor. SWAT teams have armor. Hell, there's some SWAT teams in America that have MRAPs.
Yeah. Get those big, like LA and all those other big cities. They've got all kinds of crazy, awesome armored vehicles. But they said some kind of depreciated shuttle is what they called it.
Depreciated uranium armor. I mean,
I don't know. I have no idea.
That's just steel welded on there. That's not depleted uranium.
Depleted uranium.
No.
That would be too expensive and too heavy.
Right. Depreciated. What does that mean? That they deducted the costs over time?
I think they meant underappreciated.
Underappreciated armor. Well,
yeah, I don't know. But see, we mentioned something earlier. I think you did. Why they need armored vehicles against unarmed civilians. Well, I mean, a few minutes later, you said something about, I don't understand violence against the police. I mean, just because they're unarmed, they don't have guns and, rocket launchers or anything like that. We've all seen riots all over the years of people that didn't have guns or anything like that. I mean, they'll use anything as a weapon. So, if for example, they just tried to run police cars in there, what happened during the LA riots back in the 90s, the 80s or 90s? I mean,
I was in Topanga Canyon, and I went to my studio in Burbank, and there's only a few parts of town where there was a riot, but this covered all of Paris, and it's spreading. So, because it's what's interesting is that 70 or 80% of the people support the protesters and not the government. Right. And I think it's just Macron is just doesn't understand the people of France, because he's just been an elite investment banker his whole life, and he just hasn't had any of the problems that everyone else has.
I don't. Here's another thing that I don't understand, and this is probably going to set some fire under some people. And I'm not trying to make an argument, out of this. What I don't understand is how they can tax everything so much, and if he comes from a, for example, I mean, the way you're describing this guy he is France's version of Trump.
No, he is not France's version of Trump.
Well, what I mean by a rich guy in office, not just, a politician, but a rich guy.
Yeah, but he never. The business that he ran was investment banking. It wasn't like running a company that actually makes anything. I mean, it's easy to make money as a banker because you print it yourself, more or less, with all kinds of various trickery. Right. It's basically a license to print money, and if I had a license to print money, I would have lots of it.
Exactly.
And it wouldn't be worth anything. It would be worth less and less all the time. But at least Trump had to run a business and build things, and Macron never did.
Right. And see, here's one thing that I don't understand, and I don't know if you guys you're getting the effects of it over in Hawaii, but the fuel here in Oklahoma, gas prices for gasoline has dropped down to well under $2 a gallon. I mean, some places
$4 here. It's like $4 a gallon here because of the Jones Act.
Yeah. Well, so some places have even. I think I want to say I saw like $1.63 a gallon on Facebook. But
I didn't know Facebook sells gasoline.
Well, I mean, people are posting.
I know.
People are. Apparently, that's the thing to post these days. But here's the thing. Where I'm from in southern Oklahoma, you have a lot of people that work for oil field companies. I worked for oil field companies. I have several cousins, friends, and other family members that work in oil field. Okay, usually when gas prices drop, oil field production drops. With it, because in order for them to uh, keep uh, keep producing oil, they have to raise the gas prices to pay for the equipment to do it. Well, um, I've noticed, I've asked anybody that I knew that was working in any oil field is, hey, you guys still busy? You guys fixing to lay off? No, it's not even a thing. Where'd you hear this from? And, and Halliburton Industries is one of the worst. I mean, they'll have a huge hiring spree, and 3 months later, everybody plus 50% of who they had before is all laid off.
The price of the barrel of oil affects how many, whether it's profitable or not to do things.
Well,
and it changes quickly.
Nobody in oil field business, my friends, family, anybody, nobody is having issues with their company. So here's one of two things that's happening. Either our economy is so stable at this point that we're actually able to go back to decent gas prices and a booming oil economy.
No, that's not it.
What I heard, what I saw, another thing that I heard was that something about Obama said something about gas is lowering gas prices isn't going to do anybody any good or something like that. Yet here it's happening, and I don't see anybody going broke from it. I mean, our oil field economy is still strong, and gas prices are dropping like the temperature here.
Well, when gas prices drop, it's good for the people that have in the economy and the people that have to buy gas and drive to work. It's not good for the corporations who make money the higher the price of gas goes, and which means generally not good for the stock market, which means everyone that has a 401k and a mutual fund probably has some Exxon Mobil or similar Halliburton or whatever, and the value of their 401k will go down. But
that's for lazy investors who sit by the pool all day and don't drive to work every day.
When you get people retire when they gotta get old. Okay, but what's interesting in getting back to France is that Macron, because he's such an environmentalist, he's also against nuclear power. So he wants to phase out nuclear power in France by 2025. But nuclear power provides 90% of the electricity of France. So who wants to just stop using nuclear power by 2025? I mean, really? That's 90% of your power. You're just going to turn the off switch and see what happens next? I mean, it's kind of like he's been brainwashed by the media. He's just like most of the other people. I was surprised that the visitors who gave me a free beer yesterday at the pool from Canada, they actually liked Trump a lot. So, and he was actually one of the guys was a farmer who farmed 4,000 acres up in a little north of Edmonton, and he said it was warm there when he left. It wasn't snowing; it was warm, but the East Coast obviously got hit like yesterday with snow. So people are having problems with black ice and all the usual problems when you're buried under a ton of snow.
I know we were supposed to get a snowpocalypse here a couple days ago, and the news has been broadcasting and freaking us out about it for the last 2 weeks, and sure enough, here comes Saturday. A little bit of rain. It starts raining about 2:00 Saturday. Rains all the way up until Sunday evening, then no snow. We had sleet for 10 minutes. Some places had snow, but it was nowhere near what they were anticipating. And today was what, 60, 64, 53?
You tell me. I don't live in Oklahoma.
Well, I'm trying to confirm it with the hair straightener before
Oh,
bed.
okay. Well,
But
you just tell her that you turn out the light, so it doesn't matter if your hair is straight or not.
right. But no, I woke up this morning to go hunting. It was 28 degrees at 7:30 this morning. That was an hour and a half after I got up. There's no telling what it was at 6 a.m. But no sooner than 9 o'clock hit, the temperature jumped a bunch because I mean, I was dressed up. I had my coveralls and all this stuff on, and then, you know, by then I was shedding it because I was just sweating. It was horrible. So this, and that's another thing that makes me wonder is why this. What's up with this? A lot of people are saying that the news companies are kind of intertwined with the milk and bread companies trying to hype us up to go out and stockpile groceries and stuff, and then sorry, we're wrong.
Well, I've been stockpiling lots of food because of the economic situation, but
Right, and that's another thing. A lot of people are like, "Oh, didn't you do this?" I don't need to. I'm not really worried about it. I'm a prepper. That's kind of the whole point
I
is
know,
to
but
not have to worry about this.
it was like you were saying you didn't have any luck hunting this season, and
Right. Well, I mean, if things got to the point to where infrastructure was gone, then I wouldn't have a problem. I really wouldn't be in a bind because I would go hunt anytime I needed to. But here in Oklahoma, and I'm pretty sure with a lot of other states here in the in the general area, I have to hunt pigs after the first freeze because of the parasites that they carry, and it would fall into that same category with any big game for me. It's just mostly winter sport, I guess you would say.
let's see. Enrique says in the external chat, at my job we have EU employees who take 60-day vacations. They leave one person, a temp, in charge, and they are actually foreign, like the Chinese who speak English and French languages. Okay.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, it's like they have the labor rules in France. It's like I think it's like it's crazy. Like they only have to work 37 days a year or something. I don't get it. But
that's ridiculous.
yeah, and so basically they have to France was going to have to, if they want to survive as a nation, they're going to have to radically. That's what I say. Macron should call Trump and have a long conversation about how economies work. I mean, because obviously being an investment banker didn't clue him in at all on because they need to fundamentally change how they run their economy, and the people aren't going to like that. I promise you. If they start taking away their vacation time, their cradle to grave medical coverage, all the stuff that people love, and they're also were protesting like college entrance requirements. There's another thing the protesters are protesting. It started out with a gas tax, but they have a whole long list of grievances. And after the riots started, everybody that's pissed off about anything is going to show up in the streets. That's how riots work. And it was funny earlier today before the Theresa May's Brexit talk in Parliament that Nigel Farage came on, I think, one of the news channels and said, "We're not. This is Britain. We don't riot this isn't France. We don't riot in Britain." It's like, well, maybe I don't know if that makes you better or worse. and anyway.
So what exactly does this mean? For us here in the States in the long term, in the long run.
If the EU goes down and all the EU banks go down, and basically you're talking about why they're giving England a hard time, the Britain a hard time, is because
Right.
they don't want all the other countries to leave the EU, and all the other countries want to leave the EU. So they're trying to make an example of what's going to happen to these other countries. And like, if you saw the Parliament today, they were at each other's throats. That nobody would agree on anything, and nobody could agree on anything. And so they want to teach all the other countries what's going to happen to them. Look at what's happening to you don't want to, but they all want to leave. And so if the EU zone breaks up, the ECB, the European Central Bank, you asked what it means to America. I tried to talk about it in the show 2 weeks ago when we did on gold and silver. But what's going to happen is if the European banks just shutter and close up, then all the American banks will do the same, because they're all joined at the hip through derivatives. And that, so if the banking system shuts down and nobody can get any money out of their 401ks because all the investment companies will shut down, then the just-in-time delivery system will stop, and everything will just grind to a halt. There will be no economy at all. It'll just you'll be on your own,
right?
Instantly.
So
it'll be a prepping fantasy, but it'll also be a prepping nightmare. I mean, because let's face it, most of the people on this planet or in this country aren't prepared. So what it means is economic disruptions, at least. How bad it gets, I don't know. And it just seems destined to happen. And the fact that all this stuff is happening at the same time, with Britain and France and Italian default, and Sweden wants to leave. So what Prime Minister May did, of the UK, she's going to talk to some European leaders and try and get a note to clarify the backstop part of the Brexit deal that she made with the EU for Northern Ireland, the Ireland to Northern Ireland border, so that it doesn't become a militarized border, which would violate the peace agreement between Britain and the IRA that's kept the peace in Ireland for like the last 20 years. I forget, was that the Good Friday Agreement or something? I forget what it's called, but because if the de facto border for the UK and the EU zone would be Northern Ireland, because I think Ireland and Scotland want to remain in the EU, and the thing is, if Britain leaves the EU is going to collapse, and so this is all like an academic exercise. Almost, it's all moot. It all seems moot to me, because it looks to me like the EU is breaking up,
right?
And they know it, but they either they don't know it, or they're just, it's like a snowball rolling downhill, and
it's gotta hit rock bottom and crash at any point. So go ahead, Squib. I'm sorry.
This breakup, would you call it? It's not EU, it's me.
And that's the point I was making earlier when he was saying, I feel your anger, but I've got to work on I've got to I got to work on me before I can work on us, kind of thing. So, would you Hawaii or Squib, would you guys say that we are possibly looking at a world civil war?
I don't think so. I am not the one that wants to go out there and instigate something by trying to predict it or trying to put thoughts in people's heads. However,
are you saying that I am? Are you saying that I am?
No, I'm not going to say who I'm talking about, but I'll tell you up there. No, you're not. No. But I will say this though: I'm monitoring this situation for two reasons. One, if it can happen there, and other countries are picking up steam with similar stuff, somebody here is going to try to copy it at some point. And two, if it does lead into some sort of civil war, whether it be just in the continent of Europe or it is something bigger than that, it's still something to think about how things could happen here. If there were ever to be a civil war here, what are the different ways it could happen, and how would it actually be fought, considering you're not going to draw a line and go, this is the North, this is the South. So I'm monitoring it for that, more or less like I'm trying to study it historically as it happens, if that makes any sense.
Right. As a kind of a training exercise for us that it's not necessarily affecting. So, with those two comments that you got, Squib and Hawaii were throwing back at each other. Disclaimer: this is simply a conversation channel. These are simply conversation live streams, so no one is throwing blame at anyone for any of you who.
Yeah, we just spitball prepping concepts, and for
my preps are meager compared to most, but my preps are set up for an EMP, civil unrest, or the collapse of our government. It's not set up to fight a civil war.
Right. Well, I think my opinion is the problem will be an economic collapse, and we won't have a government if the economy collapses. I mean, and that will be a problem.
Now, to your point on that, you've been on me about this whole Deutsche Bank, blah, 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 and I'm like, I don't care. But this yellow vest thing ties into the Deutsche Bank, and you did allude to that a little bit. We were talking before, and you alluded to it. And now all the stuff that you've been saying to me this whole time about that makes more sense. This gives it a tangible, you know how, money really isn't tangible per se because it's all digital and blah, 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 right? This gives the effect, okay, Germany is a big player in the EU. They bankroll a lot of this stuff. If their main bank has an issue, how are they going to pay for more of these damn armored vehicles and other stuff, right? So that could lead to part of the breakup. That could be just another stressor that causes the breakup. And I think a breakup of the European Union would be a good idea because this whole European Union thing dissolves a national identity. And these nations need their own identity. We can have United Nations and try to pass some international laws for civility. But beyond that, we really do need to have borders and identity. We really do.
No, I definitely agree. We definitely need borders and identity. That's another thing that we've been compromised here recently, and luckily, I want to say we got lucky with this last incident. Where they just after a day of fighting at the wall, they were like, "Okay, we give up. We're going home." But it's not necessarily. It's not about.
In Paris, the difference. The reason why there's not a civil war is because people can go home after protesting all day and eat some bread and drink a bottle of wine and chill out. They get hungry and they go home. If there was no food, the riots would have never stopped. They'd still be rioting. They wouldn't have stopped. And because the system is still up, that's why there was the violence was relatively. I mean, it wasn't people with guns except for the police, but the people weren't. The people were relatively peaceful compared to a all-out revolution. But what to address what Squib was saying, it's like that. I don't want to send us back into Star Trek like we did, but there was an episode where the Klingons and the Federation go to this planet called Organia, and the Organians are like these energy creatures, but they because people like humans and Klingons and humanoids would visit their planet, they have to have these buildings and structures and appear as regular people humanoids that as a common frame of, so that anybody that visited their planet would have frames of reference. And so when you see a bunch of people protesting and overturning cars and kicking around tear gas canisters that have been shot into the crowds back at the police, and that's something that everyone can understand, except I guess the president of France. But everybody can look at that and understand it because it's a common frame of reference. How the banks are set up, nobody understands that. It's like that's why the Klingon commander on Orgenia and Captain Kirk could not comprehend what was actually going on until the Organians took over and used and basically put both of their star fleets into total submission. And so that's the difference. Is you don't understand how derivatives work and how the banking system works. That's by design. But it's that you don't have a common frame of reference. If I just talk about banking and Deutsche Bank and derivatives and the debt apocalypse, then you don't have a common frame of reference. If people are rioting in the streets and shit is on fire and people are throwing tear gas canisters at each other and chanting things, even if you don't understand French, you can understand the riot. You can really understand it, and because it has a common points of reference that you can see, and an economic banking collapse will have common frames of reference eventually. But I just talk about it so that people can prepare and in case it happens, and it won't take them completely by surprise if they listen to my channel. Or just a lot of other. If you on the internet, it probably shouldn't take you by surprise. But there's a lot of brain dead people on the internet too. So that's all I have to say about it. Okay, you don't have to imitate a zombie there.
I'm only a zombie out of exhaustion.
Well, I'm the one that's drinking scotch on the rocks, so or Irish whiskey on the rocks tonight.
At least you have a life.
Well, my toughest decision every day is whether to go to the beach or go to the pool. And when I get to the pool, do I go into the hot tub or the cold pool? So that's retired.
I'm going to get some yellow vests for those homeless people over there, and I'm going to have them protest you.
Protest me. You know. Well, they were fighting right up against the wall, against the fence the other day over here by when those Canadians gave me a free beer yesterday by the pool. They were arguing really loudly about something, yelling and screaming whatever homeless people protest about, but they weren't protesting. They were just arguing and yelling at each other. And on the other side of the fence, everybody stopped drinking beer and looked over there because they were so loud. But they're building a Safeway, and Safeway's building a huge shopping area right behind our condo in the center of town here. So it'll be nice when they build it. But right now it's just a lot of excavating, breaking big rocks into small rocks, and backfilling the excavations with gravel, so it's all stable when they start building structures and everything. It's all being done completely proper to code. So it's a huge job. And then,
right after the grand opening and the ribbon cutting ceremony, a giant lava fissure will open underneath it and swallow it whole.
I'm waiting on that to happen here in Oklahoma. That's the only thing that would surprise me.
Okay, are you driving home, Squib, now?
Yeah, I am. Am I roboting?
No. But yeah, I was looking at your typing in the external. And you said you were driving, so...
Yeah, I just pulled over to say hey to a couple people. That was it.
All right.
I was being responsible. I've got my earbud in with my mic on the cord, so I don't have to really take my eyes off the wheel here.
Yeah, we want you to get home in one piece. Because that way you could make it home and see the European break up into many pieces.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something like good co-hosts are hard to find, but okay, sure, whatever.
Good. Oh, well, yeah, I want to thank you guys for being on my panel tonight, and everybody that's listened in. We do this show once a week on Mondays, it's the podcast or whatever you want to call it, live stream, and try and talk about whatever's going on, and the guns, freedom, and the truth until dawn. And I like to talk about what I try to do is to try and get people to stop and think where their freedom truly lies. What are they free? What makes them free? What is freedom? Stuff like that. And so, and everybody, at least all these guys, like a lot of my friends like guns. So we talked about guns and prepping and some hunting experiences are shared. And
Squib's hunting experiences are shared. I share my sitting in the woods experiences.
Well,
now, next time I go out, I might sit there for 13 hours and not see a thing. I got lucky. I got real lucky on my first day that I saw 2 deer and I managed to nail one of them.
Right.
300 times.
300 times.
You know, I may go out the next 10 times I go out and not see anything.
And then after he killed it, he got to chase it around for a while.
Zombie deer.
Next time I'm bringing a bat.
Well, if you hit it in the head with a bat, you need to learn to lasso thing like a calf, like a cowboy. You could practice on one of Dusty's cows, maybe.
Hey, that is a great idea. I'm adding that to the list. A lasso.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. I mean, if it coming from a hunter, coming from somebody who watches hunting videos, I mean, I'd rather shoot one and then lasso it and let it run itself to death before I'd chase it 150 yards.
You can hold it. They're not that strong. They're not very strong.
Well, you can tie the rope to a tree or something after you.
No way. No, I'll wrap it around my wrist and hold on. It ain't getting away.
What if it drags you?
It won't drag me. They're not that strong. I had one in a headlock once, and it wasn't very strong.
Well, what if it's a big buck?
Well, then I'll be careful not to damage the antlers, I guess.
Oh, if the antlers don't damage you. I mean, before you get them mounted on the wall, they can use them on you. So
then it'll have my blood on its antlers. That'll make an even better wall mount. I'll have a great story. It was me and the buck.
Well, you could just put some ketchup on. You put some ketchup on that spike that you got when you mount it, and claim it was your blood or something. But you were locked in Mortal Kombat with this deer that you shot 20 times.
It was him or me.
And I wasn't going home hungry.
And his wife said she wanted a head to mount.
Bring me its head. Yeah. Oklahoma, I hope you get one, because every deer that gets bagged is one less traffic accident. I don't think the tree huggers understand that.
No, I mean, any day you can drive to the next town, which is about 10 or 12 miles away. Any day you'll see 2 or 3 new dead deer on the side of the road on a daily basis. And that means that's, somebody's vehicle that has just been completely destroyed.
Yeah, you want to deprive all those auto repair shops of all that easy work? Did everybody just drop out, or is it me? Okay, looks like we had connectivity. I think Oklahoma's girlfriend was streaming a video, and it probably took out his Wi-Fi. So I'm guessing. Oh, here he is. He's back.
I crossed Haggerty Road in Commerce Township and lost a connection.
I have no idea what happened.
I thought it was your girlfriend on streaming video or something.
I'm on the hotspot now.
Oh, maybe her hair straightening device interfered with the Wi-Fi.
Well, yeah, but what about mine? It got both of us at the same time. It had to have been like solar radiation or the Russians or something.
Well, that was interesting that France is starting to an investigation that to blame to find out if the Russians incited the riots, and Macron incited the riots when he raised the gas tax. It wasn't the Russians.
It's one of those things, and I hate to bring these conspiracies up, but I mean it's been proven that some of these conspiracy theories have actually been proven to be true. For example,
the aliens in Roswell.
That too. No, no. The what was it? The Gulf of Tonkin incident, as well as Operation Northwoods. The Gulf of Tonkin incident was declassified, and it proved that whenever those U.S. ships were supposedly under attack by North Vietnamese, it was declassified that they were not, and it was just an excuse to start a war with Vietnam, and
don't get your Asian
I'm
countries
that tired. I am that tired. No, and then the Northwoods experiment, or the Northwoods project, was a ruse to try to incite the Cold War with who was it? Russia? I'm tired. I'm tired.
Yeah, we had a Cold War with the Soviet Union.
Yeah, the Soviets. Yeah, it was a failed attempt. Well, it wasn't a failed attempt. It was a shot down attempt by JFK, because the CIA wanted to bomb cities and run planes, hijack.
Well, I like Ron.
Jets.
Ron Swanson went. It's now his channel is now Surviving Life, but he used to be called Fox Company Prepping, and he was a real tinfoil hat person. And I liked his theories that were more hilarious. That his conspiracy theories were that the Queen of England and the Prime Minister were lizard people from outer space. And there was some video on the BBC, like in 1960s or 70s or the 80s, proving it somehow that they were actually lizard people from outer space. And I think he did a whole show on that. And I was like, okay, maybe, I don't know. But I haven't been. I was in England and visited Loch Ness once when I was 13. So I didn't see any lizard people, but he lives there, so maybe he knows better.
There's no telling.
Yeah, so I'm totally unprepared for tinfoil hat stuff. I just used to like going on the bushcraft show that he used to do on Fridays, and he would have all kinds of crazy conspiracy theories about. And what's the one about the things in the air? I think we talked about a little bit that on one of my shows when he came on. The
chemtrails?
Yeah, the chemtrails.
Oh my goodness.
He's big into that. He likes talking about chemtrails.
It's a contrail.
Condensation coming from the wind. It's like a what is it? It's kind of like a sonic boom, but less sonic.
There's a difference in air pressure between the air going over the wing and the air going under the wing, and it usually only happens at high altitude, but it can happen at low altitude, and it more or less condenses the water vapor that's already in the air.
Yeah, it's not common, but the conditions have to be absolutely perfect for it to happen low altitude, and it has happened low altitude.
Yeah, you will see it, but they don't seem to last as long. They don't stay in the air. Whereas a higher altitude, they stay in the air for a while. And I heard one of them say there can't possibly be this many airplanes flying. Yeah, there are.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. I mean, just a couple of days ago, it was or last night it was real clear, and I was seeing, like, within just looking directly to the south in my peripheral vision, or in my direct line of sight, I could see at least 10 aircrafts flying over the DFW area, which is about an hour and a half south of me. So I mean, it's possible, and it's actually fact. I mean, it does happen.
Okay, well, you guys might know more about that than me. I just thought some of it. I know some of it could be airplanes. I thought some of it might be cosmic rays from outer space.
No, the chemtrails are actually contrails. It's a real thing. I mean, trust me, I used to work on planes for a living. I used to fly, right? I mean, not a pilot, but on the aircraft that I worked on. But I'm just, it's a real thing, and there is a lot more air traffic than some people might realize. So, look, I get how the conspiracy theorists want everything to be true. They want it to be true. But when you start spouting conspiracy theories with me, you start to lose credibility real fast.
Well, I'm not spouting. I'm just trying to recall what everybody was talking about on various chats that I've been on.
I think they're entertaining. Entertaining.
Yeah, they're all funny. I mean, I especially like the lizard people one, but
well, I mean, that's kind of funny. But some of the other stuff is like, this would make a good movie, you know. Here's the thing: people do the conspiracy theories because they're trying to fill in the blanks where they don't have facts. They do what the news does. They just make up their own facts, and that satisfies their need for closure, just like it satisfies the news need for to get the story out first. So, I mean, it's just what it really is.
My favorite new thing that's going around is how the Earth is flat instead of round, and now I'm. I mean, like it's like how do people come up with this stuff? I mean, like people are saying now that the moon and all the stars and all this stuff is just a hologram projected by the government to make us believe that there's actually space and all that stuff.
Well, there was a Star Trek episode on that where this whole civilization was in this spaceship and it was like an asteroid and the people lived inside of it and they looked up and everything was painted up on the interior of a gigantic mechanical construction. But I don't think that's the case here on Earth. But it made an interesting Star Trek episode.
So, getting back to France, did you already say what your opinion was of the speech?
It was just that he was contrite. He wanted another chance to try and fix everything. But he really, what just struck me was that one line that I talked about when he said, "I cannot understand violence against the police," and I can understand personally. I can understand violence against the police. I can understand being for it. I can understand being against violence against the police, but I can't understand not understanding it. I mean, and that's his problem. It's really all directed at him. And as the head of state, not the police, but the police are the police are the state for the people in the street. Though they don't get to rub elbows with the president. They do run into the police all the time, and I mean, does that make any sense?
Yeah, that wasn't the part of the speech that got me, but yeah, I mean.
What part of the speech got you?
Okay, so I listened to Francois Mitterrand there for 13 minutes.
It's Macron.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And what I got out of it was he could have had somebody from our Democratic Party write the thing. He tried to appeal to every kind of person there was: wealthy, poor, working, retired, people with medical conditions, and he was harping on the fact that they need to do more to keep France, in the world and educate their young people, and we're going to have programs to improve this and programs to improve that and we're not going to raise any taxes, and we're not going to take any money away from the retired people. We're going to let them keep their money. And then he talked about encouraging business owners to give everybody a bonus at the end of the year, and how much he's going to raise wages. Like, I'm going to raise your wages 100 euros a week or what. Like, he can just do that. These business owners are not going to go, oh, yeah, we're going to give them a bonus at the end of the year because you said so, sir. And he was attacking the wealthy, but then he turned around and said he wasn't going to hurt the wealthy, like what you were saying, because they'll leave the country. And he almost contradicted everything he said from beginning to end with one statement or another. How are you going to pay for it if you don't raise taxes? How are you going to take care of everybody? How are you going to make somebody's going to walk away from this and be unhappy? So who is it going to be? The retired people, the people with medical problems, the rich people, or the working class people? Who's it going to be? Somebody's going to get butthurt. So it sounded like something that one of the Clintons would have said, or Obama would have said, or some of these half-assed senators we've got would say. He was talking sideways out of his mouth.
Joseph Cooper in the external chat says chemtrailplanet.com. So if you want to look that up later when you have time, you can.
No,
you can do
I won't.
on it. Okay.
I won't. It's just like when somebody goes, "We didn't go to the moon. Why not?" Because they can't make spaceships that'll do that. Yeah, they can. It's just like making an airplane. No, it's not. Have you ever worked on an airplane? Well, no. Okay, well, I have, and let me tell you, it's not that hard to do.
But an airplane isn't a spaceship, so.
Those spaceships were aircraft. They were more or less aircraft with rockets and not really designed to hold their own weight in gravity.
Well, technically, the space shuttle itself, the orbiter, is an airplane.
Yeah, well, but I was referring to like the lunar module.
Yeah, the lunar module. Right. The lunar module was made by an aircraft company. The command module was made by an aircraft company. All the controls. McDonnell Douglas, I think, made the command module, and Grumman made the lunar module. But the whole thing is
only meant to maneuver in space, not
right. But I'm saying all the technology on them is the same thing in a damn airplane. I'm not kidding you. It's all the same shit. It's all the same shit. So yes, we can build things that'll fly us to the moon. It's not that hard.
Well, I mean, there's the flying to the moon is hard. I'm not going to say no, it isn't hard. Well, why don't you do it tomorrow before the next? What'd you do it this
because we've learned everything we can from going to the moon. It ain't worth it.
No, I mean
Mars. Everybody wants to go to Mars now. They want to go to Mars now. That's the big thing.
Elon Musk.
You want to get somebody to pay for it. Paying to go to the moon, they won't back it financially. They'll back Mars financially. Anyhow, moving right along. Yeah, this guy was talking sideways out of his mouth because he sounded like he was trying to appeal to everybody, but he, just like a Democrat, he had no reasonable solution for any of the things that he proposed. He had no real way to do any of the things he was proposing. He was just trying to make a feel-good speech where nobody would be pissed off at him.
It's too late. Everybody gets pissed off at him. But when they say "hang the king" and they tag the Arc de Triomphe on the Champs-Élysées, I mean, if they want to hang you, they're pissed at you. I mean, anyway, we seem to went in like 1 or 2 sentences. We went from chemtrails to moon landings back to France. So that was pretty amazing.
These shows are always a loop.
That's the organization of the EU right there, just in our show.
Okay, well, they should put us in charge. Which country do you want, Squib?
Oh boy. Oof.
Let me just put this out there. Y'all are on y'all's own with this.
I've been over there. I don't want none of them. I mean, I like their milsurp guns, don't get me wrong, but that's about where it's, and their alcohol, but otherwise, yeah, Europe's nice to visit, but nah, I can't. No.
I'll go try some food. That's about it.
Well, I have to say the girls in Spain are pretty good looking. The ones in Italy are also good looking, but they're the most vain. I'd say, well, the girls in Spain are just, I'd take Spain just for the good-looking ladies. All right. And so, as far as anybody using armored vehicles on civilians, you guys don't think that's at all dishonorable or anything?
Okay. If they use the vehicles to run down the crowd, I'd say that's probably a D-bag move. Otherwise, no. The vehicle's really there to protect the officers that are there. They can have the loudspeaker and they can have the tear gas dispensers, and it can look scary and that sort of thing. But really, if they start throwing rocks or they get guns or whatever, and they're gonna need some military hardware to probably crack that armor. They might be able to flatten the tires and disable it, but it's going to be too heavy for them to flip. So it's just to protect the guys on the inside, really, more so than do damage to the people on the outside, I think.
Let me, from my point of view, which is, of course, former law enforcement point of view, and just because my little personal disclaimer, just because I'm former law enforcement doesn't mean I'm biased. I take this from a common sense point of view, and like I said before, look at these past riots that we've had here in the States. What good has a police car done in these riots? People set them on fire, flip them, bust out the windshields, bust off the light bar, bust out the windows, the back glass, and just tear them up. So, what logical explanation would you really put a vulnerable, unarmored police car in the middle of one of these riots and expect these people to, oh, well, that's a police car, we can't touch that? I mean, it's not going to happen. You're not going to get that type of reaction from these people, from anyone in any country, with just a regular police car. I mean, you're going to get people throwing rocks at the cops and throwing Molotovs and throwing something at these guys.
They didn't throw Molotovs because gasoline was too expensive.
But, yeah. Well, HVS, I saw your video and I saw the police vehicles they had, and those were those Sprinter vans, and those things are pretty big. As far as, I mean, you get enough guys on the side of one of those things and you start rocking it back and forth, you can flip one of those things on its side. I mean, it might look like a big heavy vehicle, but because it's so long, you've got a lot more room for more guys to be pushing on that thing.
It seemed like they were using those vehicles as a shield.
Yeah, they were using them as a shield and as a roadblock. It looked to me like the cops were just trying to keep them from going any further than they went. Didn't look like they were really trying to push them back as much as they were trying to contain them.
There are some other videos of the police charging in a group that I didn't include in that particular live stream. But where they just all had their shield in they formed two rows, and they all one in back of the shield guy, and the shield person was they charge forward like in a phalanx of 40 cops all at once charging forward. But most of the time it seems like they were just trying to hold their position. They probably only charged us if they saw somebody commit some kind of act of violence against them, do something. For most of obviously they could see stuff because they were there that we can't see everything from just a video camera perspective. So maybe they had a reason for doing that. I did see some video of one of the protesters who he went up to the police, took off his jacket, opened up his jacket, and turned around so they could see that he wasn't armed. And then he tried to talk to them, and they really didn't care to hear what he had to say. And then people started, chanting Macron Demisson. And so I would say that most of the protesters weren't really trying to be violent. They were just trying to yell and protest. Is that how fair to you?
I didn't think the protests, they looked really disorganized. They had that silly music playing in the background.
Well, of course they were disorganized. They were getting their instructions from Russia, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Exactly.
I heard a theory that somebody is paying for this, like George Soros or somebody is sending them money to pay for this, paying them to show up on the weekends to protest in order to destabilize it, in order to help destabilize the whole world, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this is where I'm talking about the conspiracy theories getting a little bit deep. I understand that they do some of that stuff over here as far as buying. You can actually rent protesters to go out and protest whatever you want.
It's an industry.
And you find them on Craigslist, too.
Yeah, but actually sending money to France to have all, I don't know, that's going a little bit far for me. So that's about as believable as Russian collusion. So
Okay.
I think it's just kind of, it's one of those things you can't really. It's a whole conspiracy thing. Everybody's going to have their own beliefs and their own ideas as to why this is happening, who's doing this. The Russians inciting this riot, or are people hiring these actors to come out and do this? I mean, it's just.
It looked to me like everyone's just pissed off. It looked to me like everyone's just pissed off. Right. That's how it looked to me, but I am not in France. So.
The other thing is, it was mostly men in the crowd. I noticed a few females, and the ones that were there, they were taking pictures and stuff like that. So for all I know, they're reporters, but I didn't notice a whole lot of females in the crowd, and I thought that was kind of unusual in a socialist type country. I mean, don't get me wrong. I worked for the French for 20 years. They're the biggest sexist pigs out there. Well, maybe the Australians might be more, but I thought I would have seen more women out there with them being so socialist.
I used to go to this coffee shop. When I used to, in my LA former life as a dubbing guy, my Italian dubbing director lived near this Hollywood coffee shop called the Bourgeois Pig. And it was a funny name for a coffee shop. They had really good coffee and had a lot of cafe Americans. It's like almost like a bowl of soup size of coffee. So, and I was a big coffee guy back then. I still am, but back then I just, whenever I had a film, we had to talk about it. I thought we needed the coffee shop. And for some reason, that's how Macron strikes me, is a bourgeois, elitist investment banker who just doesn't understand regular people, the day-to-day lives of regular people. And because his whole world was investment banking, and that's a whole nother, it's nothing like regular people that have a job, that have to work, if they can find one. I think 20% of the jobs in France and Paris are government jobs, and that's who he was talking about giving a raise to, with a tax-free raise to bonus at the end of the year, was just the government employees.
Well, see, I was trying to figure, how's he going to pay for all these programs and do this and do that and do this and do that and not raise taxes and stop taxing the retirees and do this and do that and do that. And I was thinking the only way he could do it is government cutbacks. Well, it ain't going to be his salary that gets cut, and it ain't going to be his friend's salary. So they'd end up cutting government employees. Well, that's going to piss off the government unions. Plus, if you don't have enough government employees, how are you going to have all these education systems that he's talking about putting in place, and how are you going to have social services for people if you don't have enough? So that's what I'm saying. Everything he said, he didn't have a way to pay for it. He didn't have a way to make it happen. He was just trying to appeal to everybody.
Well, I think he was trying to, the bonus, I think he was trying to appeal to his police force by promising them a bonus if they make it to the end of the year. I mean, all the government employees, especially the police force, is going to get a bonus. In other words, let me put it to you in a more familiar voice. Where's my? Here it is. 1 second. In other words, what he was saying was, that's what he was saying, and he was saying, trust me. So. And then now they're investigating the Russians for instigating the riots. So where's my other movie snippet? Here it is.
Russians need to take us from one business while they're here now.
Okay. So, anything else you guys want to cover before we wrap this one up? Or if I
Viva
lost
la
it.
revolution.
Viva la France. Viva la liberté. And Viva Lock and Load. We'll be here next week talking about whatever is happening in space, on Earth, in the universe, and what?
I don't know if the space has to do with the grand solar minimum or some conspiracy theory. That's why I was laughing.
All right. Well, it is what it is. We'll see you guys next week. All right. God bless America. Freedom.
See ya.